Marcus Bell's day had started like any other. Cold cereal, an old backpack with broken zippers, and the long walk to Crestview High that cut through the backyards of people who never looked twice at him. His dad worked nights fixing busted plumbing and old trucks. They'd never had much, but Marcus had one thing most kids didn't: curiosity. He'd fix anything he could find: radios tossed in trash bins, microwaves neighbors abandoned on the curb. At Crestview, he'd snuck into the computer lab after hours more times than he could count, not to steal, but to learn. He knew the old computers were slow and buggy, so one night, when a computer sparked and died during a class project, Marcus stayed behind to fix it. He had the back panel off, wires neatly laid out, when Principal Harris walked in. The principal had always looked at Marcus the same way he looked at chewing gum on his shoe, an annoyance he couldn't scrape off fast enough. Harris's voice echoed in the empty lab. "What do you think you're doing, Bell?" Marcus tried to explain. He showed the old capacitor he'd replaced, the loose connection he'd resoldered, but Harris didn't care. He only saw a poor kid poking around in school property. Within minutes, he'd called security. Marcus was dragged from the lab, holding back tears, while kids in the hallway snickered. The next morning, Harris handed Marcus a crisp white envelope. Inside was an expulsion letter, formal, final. The reason? Tampering with school equipment. His dad, tired and still in his greasy coveralls, showed up that afternoon to beg Harris for a second chance. But the principal wouldn't budge. "You people always have excuses," Harris sneered. "Rules are rules. Maybe learn to follow them instead of playing hero." That night, Marcus sat at their kitchen table under the flickering light bulb. His dad didn't say much, just patted his shoulder and fell asleep in his chair, exhausted from a double shift. Marcus stared at the expulsion notice. He thought about the computer, the sparks, the wires. He thought about how he loved circuits more than anything, how he'd once dreamed about building machines that could change things for people like him and his dad. He pulled out a sheet of lined paper and wrote a letter, not to the principal, not to the school board, but to the only person he'd ever heard about who might actually read it. Everett Caldwell, the tech billionaire who'd once been a high school dropout himself. Marcus had seen his story on TV, how Everett fixed broken radios in his mom's garage, how he'd built a company from nothing. "Mr. Caldwell," Marcus wrote, "I know you don't know me, but I didn't do anything wrong. I was trying to fix something. It's what I do. Please don't let this be the end." He folded up the letter with a sketch he'd made, a simple circuit that could make the old lab computers run faster for free. He sealed it in an envelope, addressed it with careful block letters, and slipped out into the cold night to drop it in the mailbox on the corner. The next morning, Marcus didn't go back to Crestview. He sat on the front steps of their trailer, watching school buses rumble by. His dad still slept inside, a wrench clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Marcus wondered if anyone would read his letter, if people like Everett Caldwell even noticed kids like him. In a gleaming office high above the city, Everett Caldwell flipped through mail like he did every morning. Fancy invitations, big contracts, charity gala requests, the same routine. But when he saw Marcus's letter, smudged and creased, he paused. He read it once, then again. He looked at the hand-drawn circuit, the neat pencil lines. Everett leaned back, remembering the smell of his old garage, the way his mother cried when he dropped out to build something no one believed in. He pressed the intercom on his desk. "Get the pilot ready. There's someone I want to meet today." By noon the next day, Crestview High's parking lot buzzed with gossip. Students pressed against windows, phones out, faces glued to the sky as the distant whir of helicopter blades grew louder. The sound swallowed up the usual morning announcements. Even Principal Harris, halfway through a stale bagel in his office, paused mid-bite when the secretary burst in, breathless. "Sir, there's a helicopter landing on the soccer field." Harris snorted. "What does that have to do with—" But the secretary was already gone, racing back to the windows with the rest of the school. Outside, the wind whipped up dust and papers as the sleek black helicopter settled onto the grass like something out of a movie. The side door opened, and out stepped Everett Caldwell, billionaire, genius, guest speaker to entire stadiums. And today, visitor to a rundown public high school no one expected him to notice. Students parted like waves when Everett, in a simple black jacket and sneakers, strode through the halls with two assistants trailing behind. He paused at trophy cases, glanced at peeling posters for the robotics club Marcus once dreamed of joining. Then he spotted Marcus, standing by the cafeteria doors, small and pale, holding his dad's old ball cap in his hands like a shield. "Marcus Bell?" Everett's voice boomed more with warmth than authority. Marcus nodded, throat too tight to answer. Everett knelt slightly, meeting him eye to eye. "Got your letter. I used to fix broken radios in my mom's garage, too. Funny thing about broken things, sometimes they make the best builders." The hallway had fallen silent. Phones hovered, recording every word. Principal Harris arrived, red-faced and panting. He forced a smile. "Mr. Caldwell, we weren't expecting—" Everett didn't look at him. He stayed focused on Marcus. "How about you show me that lab, the one you were trying to fix?" Marcus's eyes widened. He stammered, "But I'm not— I mean, they expelled me." Everett turned slowly to Harris. "Did you expel a student for fixing your broken equipment?" Harris tried to keep his voice calm. "It was tampering, rules, safety." Everett raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." He turned to his assistant. "Make a note. We'll have our lawyers handle any nonsense." Then he draped an arm around Marcus's shoulders. "You want a job, Marcus, or maybe just a chance to learn where people appreciate fixing things?" Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, eyes burning as the entire hallway watched, stunned. Outside, Marcus's dad stood by the soccer field fence, grease still under his fingernails. He looked at his son and the billionaire beside him and just shook his head, half laughing, half crying. The helicopter's blades spun slowly in the afternoon sun, glinting like a promise. Minutes later, Marcus sat inside Everett Caldwell's helicopter, headset on, staring out at the tiny world below. He clutched his sketchbook to his chest, the same one Harris had almost thrown away. Everett leaned over with a grin. "First stop my lab, then college if you want it. After that, sky's the limit." As the helicopter lifted off, students crowded the soccer field, phones out, faces upturned, watching the expelled kid fly away with the richest man in town. Harris stood frozen near the goalpost, tie flapping in the downwash, powerless to do anything but watch the future roar away. For Marcus, the rumble of the helicopter's engine wasn't just an escape. It was the sound of doors opening, ones no principal could slam shut ever again. He glanced at Everett, who gave him a nod as if to say, "Fix what's broken." Marcus looked down at his sketchbook, already scribbling new ideas as the school shrank to a dot below. He smiled to himself, the expulsion letter forgotten, just another broken thing he'd learned how to fix.